Good evening. Tonight I'd like to reflect with you on the Gospel for Friday of the 19th week of Ordinary Time, which is also the feast day of St. Maximilian Kolbe, priest and martyr. The Gospel is taken from the 19th chapter of St. Matthew, verses 3 through 12. Some Pharisees approached Jesus and tested him, saying, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any cause whatever?" He said in reply, "Have you not read that from the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, 'For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh'? So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, man must not separate." They said to him, "Then why did Moses command that the man give the woman a bill of divorce and dismiss her?" He said to them, "Because of the hardness of your hearts, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. For from the beginning it was not so. I say to you, whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery." His disciples said to him, "If that is the case of a man with his wife, it is better not to marry." He answered, "Not all can accept this word, but only those to whom that is granted. Some are incapable of marriage because they were born so, some because they were made so by others, some because they have renounced marriage for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Whoever can accept this ought to accept it." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Well, here for the second time in St. Matthew's Gospel, Jesus addresses the question of divorce and remarriage. He did so in the 5th chapter when he was doing the antitheses. At that time, he told his disciples that a man could not divorce and marry another. If he did so, he would commit adultery, and he would also force his wife to commit adultery. So now his disciples posed the question to him again, and Jesus makes a reference to the beginning. He makes a reference to Genesis, not only pointing out that God made them male and female, but quoting also Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, where it says that is why a man leaves his father and mother's house and cleaves to his wife, and the two become one flesh. Yes, Jesus has come to restore things that were lost when our first parents sinned. He has come to be the Redeemer and to redeem marriage, and not merely to redeem marriage, but to elevate marriage, make it something better than it was before. Christian marriage between two baptized persons, a special sacramental bond is formed that once the marriage is consummated, no earthly power can dissolve. What God has joined, man is not to divide. And so his disciples ask, but wait a minute, didn't Moses allow man to write his wife a bill of divorce? Jesus explains, it was because of the hardness of your hearts. But it was not so from the beginning. That is in God's original plan for man and woman. It was not meant to be. There was not to be this lack of commitment, this giving up on relationships. No, in fact, part of the reason Jesus opposes marriage and divorce is that he himself is committed to his bride, the church. He wants to show us how to love. In the Old Testament, throughout the Old Testament, there's this spousal relationship between God and the nation of Israel. In today's first reading, which was taken from Ezekiel chapter 16, there is a recounting of God, of his relationship with Israel, how he saw her when she was born and covered in her own blood, how she grew into a child and began to grow up like a plant in the field, how she reached puberty and then eventually was of marriageable age, and he covered her with his cloak, how he bathed her with water, washed away her blood, anointed her with oil, put on her the finest robes and jewelry and so on, and made her truly, exceedingly beautiful. And God loved her. But how did she treat him? She was not faithful. She played the harlot to the other nations, to false gods. Yet God had loved her and entered into a covenant with her. And so rather than abandon his covenant, God renewed his covenant with her, brought her back, covered her with his mercy, which led her to be confused. How can you still love me despite all I have done? And she became quiet, silenced for shame, because he pardoned all her offenses. We too have not always been faithful to the promises of our baptism, to to the promises of our marriage, to the promises of our consecration as religious or priests. But God has remained faithful. This is what covenantal love looks like. And God showed his fidelity in and through his Son, Jesus Christ, who laid down his life for his bride, the church, who made her pure through the outpouring of his most precious blood, who gave everything he had and everything he was so that she might live and have life and have salvation. Jesus will model this teaching from the 19th chapter of Matthew in his passion. He is passionate about his bride, and he's willing to suffer anything for her. It's true that many marriages involve great suffering, great difficulty, seemingly impossible situations. God understands that we are fragile, that we are weak. And yet God also calls his disciples to a higher love, to learn how to forgive, to learn how to bear a certain degree of suffering, to learn how to bear wrongdoings patiently. And he invites us to think about our own commitment, especially to him, to our baptismal commitment, to entering more deeply into a covenantal relationship with him. Sometimes we think this is truly impossible for us in our human weakness. But today's saint reminds us that it is possible. Yes, the saints very often incarnate these biblical teachings. Today we remember prisoner 11670, otherwise known as Maximilian Kolbe. He was a Franciscan, very devoted to Mary Immaculate. He used the modern media of his day, the newspaper, the printing press, to make known the gospel and to make known the power of the Immaculate Virgin. He served for a while in Japan, but at the time of the Second World War, he and some others were rounded up and sent to Auschwitz, where there he tried his best to minister to the prisoners, those kept captive, and to give them some hope. Then one day when a prisoner escaped, 10 prisoners were then ordered executed. One of those was a married man, and when he was about to be executed, Maximilian Kolbe said, "I am a priest. I will take his place." Over the last 2 decades, priests have been much maligned, in part because of the sexual abuse scandal. We cannot deny it. But on a day like today, we remember what the priesthood is all about. It's about sacrifice and offering and prayer, about complete commitment to the people of God. And that's what Maximilian Kolbe showed. I am a priest. And he loved with a heroic love. The other day, I was driving back from my vacation, and I received a call from a Mercy hospital nearby the parish. And they said, "Oh, Father, someone's dying. He might make it through today, maybe into tomorrow, but not much longer. Can you come?" We tried 4 different parishes, couldn't reach a priest. I said, "Well, I'm 250 miles away, but when I get back, I'll do it first thing," which is what I did. And I met the man. He was very alert. I anointed him. He had stopped eating. I anointed him, and he still looked a little fearful, and we talked a little while. And then I left him knowing that he had had the sacraments. But he got better by the power of grace of God. God be praised. And I'm happy to report he was discharged. But I only did my duty. I'm a priest. St. Maximilian Kolbe loved with a heroic love, a love much more like Jesus' love. That's what God's calling us to do every day, to be conformed more and more each day, even to the point of death, for love. For his love is stronger than death. Maximilian Kolbe is a great saint for us all. He reminds us that God calls us to be saints, to be heroes, to be lovers of those whom he loves. May God bless you and your families.